Hi friends, welcome to my channel. In today's session we are going to discuss about CRUD operations in Asp.NET Core MVC by using Entity Framework Code First approach. For this example we are going to use Visual Studio 2022 and we are going to use the database as SQL Server. This is the final output of this session. So you can click on create employee, so where you can create the employee. So all the validations are applied, both client side and server side validations are applied here. If you click on submit without entering any data, so this server side validation will be called. If you are entering any data, so automatically client side validations will work. If you remove any data, so client side validation will work here. So we are going to enter one test entry. Here user can enter date of birth manually. Also there is a calendar available. User can click here and they can select the date of birth. And also email is required here. And we can enter the salary, submit it. So once it is submitted, we are showing the bootstrap alert. And user can edit the data. Click on edit. By default ID will be disabled, just showing for user reference purpose. If you want, you can remove this ID column and you can modify here. Update. Once it is successfully updated, this message will be shown to the user. You can click on delete to delete the employee. All the text box will be disabled in this form, because we are not going to edit any data here. Click on delete. So employee details are deleted and that entry has been removed from the index page. While editing, so user can change any value here. So we are entering some dummy ID here. If you click on enter, employee details not available with ID 170. So these validations also implemented in this example. Before continuing with this session, I would request you all, please subscribe to my channel and click on bell icon for notification alerts. I am going to create a new project. So I am using Visual Studio 2022. Click on create a new project. Here I am searching for MVC. We are going to use MVC. Here look for ASP.NET Core web application which is having MVC and ensure that we are using C#. Click on next. Here we can provide the project name. So I am mentioned as employee data is my project name and I am going to store in my local drive. Here you can provide the solution name. By default it will take the project name. If you want, you can modify here. Click on next. Here we have to select the .NET framework. In my case .NET 6.0 is latest and I am selecting .NET 6.0. Create project. Our project is creating now. Our project has been created now. Go to the Solution Explorer. So we are going to use Entity Framework to perform the CRUD operations. So we have to add the packages related to Entity Framework. For that, right click on the project. Click on Manage NuGet Packages. Click on Browse. Here you can search for Entity Framework Core. To install any packages, we need internet connectivity. Select the Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Click on Install. If you are not aware of this package, you can check for the description. So here description is provided by Microsoft. And then we need Microsoft EntityFrameworkCore.SqlServer because we are going to use the SQL Server for database. Click on install. Okay. We have to accept the license terms. So finally we need one more package called tools. Select the Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore.Tools. So this Entity Framework Core.Tools will be used for code first approach only. If you are going with DB first approach, you no need to install this package. Click on install. So Entity Framework related packages has been installed now. Also we need Bootstrap. We are going to use Bootstrap for our form design. Select Bootstrap and install. So while installing any packages, you can select any latest stable version. So Bootstrap has been added to our project. Now we are going to create employee model. Right click on models, add new folder. I am going to create new folder for all DB entities. Here I am going to create employee data model. Right click and add class. Here I am giving my class name as employee. Here I am going to add all the properties which we required for employee table. First one, we need ID. This will be primary key. If you are providing any property name with ID, by default Entity Framework will treat as primary key. If you are using other than ID, you have to mention as key. And for that we have to add the missing namespace of data annotations. And also I want to make it as identity for ID column. For that, database generated. So here we can make it as identity, so that we no need to pass any values to ID field. Then I need first name, last name, I'm going to take date of birth, email, I'm taking salary. So we are going to create a table with these fields: first name, last name, date of birth, email and salary. Here first name we are declaring as string. So whenever we are not specifying this column length, automatically treat this as envarchar max. For that we can restrict with column. Here we can provide type name. Here I can mention as varchar 50. And also last name also we can make it as varchar 50. If you are not providing this column type, then by default it will be created as envarchar max. Then we have to create employee DB context. For that I am going to create one new folder, add. So I will make it as data access layer, because this DB context will communicate with the database. Right click, add. I am creating one more class called employee DB context. So this employee DB context will be inherited from DB context. And here we have to create one constructor. For that, go to the quick actions, generate constructor with options. Here I am going to create data set for our employee class. get set. So this employee table will called every time when we are performing our CRUD operations. Now we have to add database connection string. For that we are going to add in app setting.json. Here I am going to add our connection string. Here I am using connection strings. We have to pass connection string name. I will make it as default connection. Here we have to pass server name, then we have to pass database name, then we have to pass, if it is Windows authentication, then we have to pass integrated security as true, or if you are using any SQL Server authentication, then you have to pass your user ID and password. In my case I am going to use Windows authentication, that's why I am using integrated security as true. So here I have to provide the server name and database. For that I will open my SQL Server. Here I am going to use Windows authentication and I have multiple SQL instances like SQL Demo and SQL Express. That's why I am going to use my system name is my PC and SQL Demo is my SQL instance name. Copy this and paste it in server. And database, currently we have 3 databases here. I am going to create as demo3 here. Here we are going to create new database as demo3 and we are going to create employee table. Now we have to add our dependency injection in program.cs. If you are using lesser version like Visual Studio 2019 or 2017, you will be having one more class file like startup. You have to add in startup.cs. Here we are going to add dependency injection. Here I am going to add builder.services.add_db context. Here we have to pass our employee DB context name. Here we have to pass options. Options dot use SQL Server. We are going to use SQL Server here. Builder dot configuration dot get connection string. Here we have to pass our connection string name, which is added in app setting.json. This is my connection string name. I have to pass to our dependency injection. Here get connection string. Now we added the dependency injection to connect with SQL Server. Now we are going to migrate the database. For that you can open the package manager console, which is available here, or else you can go to tools, go to the new package manager and you can select the package manager console from here. Here we have to add migration. In my case it's initial migration. You can enter. Here one more important thing is, if you have multiple projects, by default it will select for any one project. You have to change the project name. In my case we have only one project, that's why default project selected. If you have multiple projects, while migrating any database, you have to select the specific project and then you have to add the migration or update the database. So now our migration has been added. Now we have to update the database. Once you do this step, then only your DB has been pushed to your SQL Server. Currently we will refresh here, so we don't have any database called demo3. Now we are going to run update database command. So now this will create the database and the table will be moved to our SQL Server. Here there is a typo error, so we'll go to the app setting.json. You can see the error here. It's mentioned integrated security. There is a typo error, so I'm going to correct it here. Save it and again run the update database command. So now it is successfully pushed to our database. You can refresh our databases. Demo3 DB has been created. Expand this, so you can see the table of employee also. So now we will create a employee controller. Right click on the controllers, create a controller. So I am going to create empty controller, add. I am making as employee controller, add it. Here we have to initialize our employee DB context. For that I am going to create constructor. Here I am calling our employee DB context. I will make it as context. Employee DB context, go to the quick actions. You can make it as create and assign field context. So this will create and this will assign to our context. Here I will make it as underscore context. Now we can call our employee DB context in our controller. Here we are going to read our employee data, where employees context dot employees dot to list. Here we will get the list of employees. That's why I am converting into the list. So finally we have to assign this employees data to view. Here this employees model will be used to communicate with only database. For view purpose we are going to create another class file like employee view model. Right click on models. I am going to create another class employee view model. So it will be having same fields whatever we have in the employee model. Here I am going to paste it, and I no need to provide the data type here. This employee view model will be used for display purpose. That's why I am going to change this display name. I'll make it as first name. For last name also I am going to make it as last name. Date of birth and email I am making as, for email I will make it as email. So this will be displayed in our form. Also while displaying in index page I am not going to display first name and last name. I am going to display as full name. For that I will add another property, say string, and I am going to make it as full name. Get, here we no need to add any set because we are not going to use it for performing save or update or delete operations. Here only for display purpose only we are using. That's why I am using get only. Here I am going to add first name plus I am going to add one space and I am going to add last name. So I am going to display both together as full name. Here I have to close it. Also I'm going to add display name as, instead of showing as full name, I'll make it as name alone. Okay, now we will create one view for this index page. Right click on the index action method, click on add view, select the eraser view empty, click on add. So name will be index only, click on add. Here we are not specifying anything like whether it's a get method or post method. By default in the controller, if you are not specified any method type, automatically it will be http get. If you want, you can add, or else you can remove this also. So by default it will be http get. So now we will design our index form. Here we are going to use model. For binding purpose, we will get the list of employees, so which is available in the employee view model. So I can add the namespace here, employee view model. Here I am going to add title. Employee details. Here I am going to add h3 tag to display the title. After this I am going to add one horizontal row for the separation. Here I am going to add form. I'll create one table and I'll add bootstrap styles to this table responsive and table. These are all bootstrap styles I am applying to the. Here I am going to add table header. I am going to create one table row. For this row I am going to add one class table active, and here I am going to add table header. So here I am going to make it 5 fields. We need ID, name, and date of birth, then email and salary. Finally, here we are going to show action buttons like edit or delete. Here we are going to display the table body. Here we have to check model contains any records or not. Model is not equal to null, and model dot any. If it contains any records, then only we have to display the data, otherwise we have to display the message like there is no records. If model is not empty, then we have to check for each loop where we will get multiple employees from model. Here we are going to create table row and we are going to loop it. Then we are going to add table data, employee dot ID, then name, here we have to display the full name, then date of birth, then email, then salary. Along with these data, we have to display the 2 action buttons like edit and delete. For that I am going to create one more TD, and here I am going to add one div which is class of btn group, I'll make it as small. I'll make it as small buttons, and here I'm going to add 2 hyperlinks which will redirect to employee controller, and it will be edit. And here I'm going to add Asp action like edit. So we have not yet created any action method for edit, so in future I'm going to add edit action method also. Just I'm adding edit action name here. Then here we have to provide route ID, which is getting from employee.id. So whenever we are clicking on this button, so it should pass the employee ID. Also here we can assign the bootstrap classes, btn primary. So I'm making copy of this, and here another action will be delete, and here I'm making as delete, making as danger. Also on top of the table we have to display one button to create new employees. For that I will add one button here. Add button, say create employee, and I'll add Asp action for this button also. It will be create. We don't have any action methods like create, edit and delete. We are going to create it, and controller will be, if it is same controller then we no need to add controller name here. If you are using different controller then you have to pause it. It's not the mandatory, this controller name is not mandatory, but I'm adding here. And class also I'm adding here. If this model is empty or null, in that case we have to display the message here. For that I'll create one table row. It contains 6 fields, 5 columns and another action method, one table data. So I'm going to add call span of 6. Here I'm going to add div no employees available at this moment. So this is the message we are going to display when there is no data in the table. Now save all, run the application. So this is our home page. We have to move to our employee controller. So here there is a error because we are passing employee data, but our index view is expecting employee view model. That's why we are getting error. So we are going to change this. Here we have to check employee data available or not. Employees are not equal to null. Then we have to call for each. We have to check all the employees from the list of employees data, and we are going to assign it to one list, that is employee view model. So we are going to convert into the employee list. This employee model will be used to communicate with database, and this employee view model will be used to pass the data from controller to view and view to controller. That's it. So this is not going to connect with database anymore, because this employees class is used in the employee DB context. That's why we are converting like this. And now if I have any data in employee table, then I'm going to convert into employee view model. Now we have to assign employees data to employee view model to pass into the our index view. ID employees dot ID first name and last name, date of birth, email, and finally salary. So after reading this model, we have to add into the our employee list dot add. You have to pass employee view model, and finally we are going to return this employee list. So if there is no data, we are going to return the empty. So this employee list, we will make it outside of this if condition, so that we can pass employee list to this view here also. Anyway, we are validating this employee list inside the index view. Model is not null and model is having any data, then only we are going to bind it. So we no need to worry about this, so we can pass directly employee list. Now we will run the application. So it is showing as we expected. So currently we don't have any data, that's why it's showing as no employee is available at this moment. Here we have to add some gap between this button and the table. For that, I'm going to the index view. Here I'm going to add margin bottom 3, and also here I'm going to add table border. I'll reload it once. So now it looks perfect. So currently we don't have any data, that's why it is showing no employees available at this moment. So our condition is executing as per this else statement. Now we will insert some dummy records here. I have some sample entries for this demo purpose. I'm inserting those records here. So now we have 17 entries. We will reload this page. So it is showing as per our expectation. So here we can format this date of birth. It's showing time also, so we can format it. To string. So I'm going to make it as dd/mm 4 digit. So now it's showing correctly. So in next session we are going to apply, create employee, edit and delete. So we are going to perform one by one. Open the employee controller. Here we are going to create one action method for create. right click on this action method, click on add view. I am going to create empty view here. I'll name it as create for this view. Here we will design the form by using the employee view model. This is our employee view model. We have to add the reference here. Employee view model. Here we will add the title for our form. I'll give the title as create employee, and here I'll create one h3 tag to display our title in our form. After title, we will add one horizontal row to separate the title and our form. Here we will create form, and action will be create. We are going to create another action to post the data. For that I am giving action name as create, and method will be post. Here I am going to create one div. I'll add margin bottom 3, and I am going to create label. Class I will add as form label, and this will be our first name. Then we have to add input type here. It will be text. Class I am going to add form control. ASP4, here we are going to get the first name from our employee view model. Here we are going to add span for validation message. We are going to display validation messages in the span for first name, and class we can add it, say danger. So we will copy the same div and we can reuse it here. After first name we need last name. Then we need date of birth here. This type will be date. We are going to display calendar inside this text box. Then we need email. Finally we need salary. This will be text. For this salary text box we will add one dollar symbol. For that I'll create separate div and I'll make it as input group. Inside this input group I am going to add span to display dollar. Class it's input group text. Here I will add dollar, and we will move this text box inside this div. So now this dollar will be displayed in front of the salary. Finally, we will create one more div for button. I'll make it class as say grid. Here we are going to display our submit button. Type will be submit. The class we can add here btn primary. Text will be submit. We'll run the application and we'll see the output. Click on create employee button. So our form is displaying as per our expectation. Here we have to change this email should be text. Here I am making as text this one. Add one nav item for the employee data so that we no need to add address manually every time. Go to the shared folder, open our layout. Here I am going to copy one nav item. So this will be employee controller and the action will be index and the text will be employee data. So click on the employee data nav item. It should redirect to index page. Click on create employee button. So whenever we click this calendar so that we can see our calendar. So now we will write the action method for post the data into the database. For that we will go to our controller. Here we will create post method to submit the data into our database. For that I am going to create one post method. Here in our create view model we are using employee view model, so it will post the data as employee view model. So here we have to get the data as employee view model. We'll make it as employee data variable here. So before submitting the data we have to validate if model state is valid or not. For that is valid, then we have to save the data, else we have to display the error to user. Here we are receiving data from the employee view model. So to communicate with the database we have created one employee DB context and the employee model. So we have to assign the data to employee model. For that where employee, say new employee, I'll create one object. Here I will assign the employee view model data to our employee class so that this will communicate with the database and it will insert into our SQL Server. Here I will read first name from our employee data, then last name, date of birth, then email, salary, here we have to call our context dot employees dot add So whatever the data we are getting from the view, we have to assign here employee, then context dot save changes. So this will save the changes to our database, and here if there is any error, we have to display that message to user. For that I am going to save in temp data. If model is not valid, you have to display as error message. Here we have to display the message as model data is not valid. So you can change error message as per your requirement, and if it is success, then we can pass the success message here. I'll make it as success employee created successfully. So like this we will display the message. Finally we have to redirect to our index action method. Redirect to action. We are going to redirect to our index view. If model is not valid, we have to return again to the same view. Also, if there is any unhandled exceptions are there, we have to catch that. For that, select entire code, right click, go to the snippet, surround with, try catch. So here if there is any exception, we have to handle that also. So this will be error message. I'm copying here. We have to read exception message like this. So this will return to our create view again. Now whenever employee is created successfully, or if there is any model state errors are there, or if there is any unhandled exceptions are there, we are storing messages in the, if there is any error, then we are displaying as temp data error message. If it is data saved successfully, we are storing in the temp data, that is success message. So we have to display these messages in index. If there is any error, we have to display in the create. For that we will create one bootstrap model. Whenever there is a success message, this we have to display inside our index view, and if there is any error, we are going to display in the create view. For that we have to create one model alert for index. So I am going to read that temp data which is passing from the controller success message. Here we are going to read success message first. If it is not null, then we have to convert into the string. So we are going to validate string message. Also here we are going to add error message also. First we will check if string is not empty or not null, then we have to display the message. Here I will create one div. It will be success alert. Here I am going to add message like, here we can add our success message, and also here we have to add one button to close our message. It will be button. Class I am adding as btn close, and it will be displayed in the right end. This will be need to dismiss as alert. Same thing we have to make it for our error message also. Here we no need to add @ because this is continuation of the if statement. If there is any error message also, we are going to display as error. It will be danger. So this message we are going to add in our create also. Whenever that model is not valid, we are going to display the message in create view. For that we have to copy this error message. I am going to read it here. If it is not null or empty, then we are going to display the error. For that, run the application. Here we are keeping one debug point to validate the data. So without entering any data, we are trying to submit the form. It's coming into our controller. Its model state is invalid. It's showing as false. Then it will be added this error message. Again it's going to create view. So it is showing the message as we expected, and this close button should be moved to top. For that we'll do alignment, like we have to move this button inside our div. Now we'll see F5. Yeah, it is showing correctly, so we can close this. Also we are going to add one more condition, like so whenever the message is displayed here, any error message or success message, it should close automatically. For that also we are going to implement one small JavaScript function, so that automatically it will be closed whatever the timeline we are specifying in that custom JavaScript. Now manually also user can close here. We will add that custom JavaScript to our model. For that, go to the www root, go to JS. Here we are going to create one custom JavaScript. Right click on the JS, add new item, select the JavaScript, and here I am making as custom JS. Here I am going to set timeout for our alert. Set timeout. Here I am going to create one function. Here I am going to add for alert only, this will work. Alert. Here we have to close. For this, here we can set timeout. It will be milliseconds. I am adding as 5000, so that it will be 5 seconds. I am adding. After 5 seconds our alert should close automatically. And this custom JS we have to add inside our layout to call in our all the pages wherever we are going to use the alert. So here just drag and drop your custom JavaScript file and run the application again. So without adding any data, try to submit. So model data is not valid. It should close automatically after 5 seconds, whatever this timeline we are. So it's working perfectly. Again we will try it once again. Submit. So our alert is showing here. It should close after 5 seconds. It's closed. So now we will enter any data. So here user can enter the date of birth manually. Also user can select the date of birth from the calendar like this. Click on submit. Employee created successfully. We will go to our database and we will check that. So currently we have 17 records here. Execute. So this is the latest record which is having ID 18. So it's working perfectly. Also here we have to add one client side validation for this, because currently whenever we are submitting, it's going to our server and it's validating from the server side. For that we have to add client side validation. Currently our validations are working from the server side. We have not implemented the client side validation. We are going to implement client side validations also in this form. So first we'll check whether it's working server side validation or not. Click on submit. It's hitting our server, and after that only it's showing the validations. Click on continue. See, so after hitting the server only these validations are working. So when you are using server side validations, our performance will be slow. For that we are going to implement client side validations. We'll see how to implement the client side validations in the create employee form. Close the application. So go to the create form. Here we are going to add our section. We are going to add scripts. This will be section. Here we are going to call our validation script, that is await html dot render partial async. Here we have to pass our validation file, that is go to the views, shared. So in this partial page only we are calling our JavaScript validation files. So this we have to render inside our form wherever we are doing like insert or update, so that client side validation will be implemented. Now we have added the client side validation logic. We'll go to the employee controller again. We'll keep debug point here. We'll run the application. We'll see whether client side validation is working or not. Click on submit. See, it's not hitting our server. Without entering into the server, these client side validations are working. Also whenever you are entering any text, automatically that error will be removed here. So if you remove all the text, again the client side validations are working as per the expectations. Here in our create form, whatever the data we are previously entered, those data are showing. We can disable this by adding autocomplete as false here in the create form. In the create view, I'll make it as autocomplete off, so that the text will not be displayed. Once again, also here we have to move this button inside the div in index view. Also just remove this button from outside of the div and make it inside the div. Run the application. So we'll remove the debugger. We'll try to create another employee here. See, all the autocomplete text is removed from our form. I'll make it as test employee. Submit. So it's redirected to our index view. and the message is showing, and automatically it is closed after 5 seconds. Before start working on the edit operation, so we will do the some alignment for this data. Here this all the headers we will make it as center, and this ID we will make it as center, and the date of birth we will make it as center, and salary we will align to right. We will apply bootstrap styles to this header. I am assigning class text center. I'll copy and I will use it for other table headers also. Then for data, so we are going to make it ID in center, and the date of birth will be in center, and these action buttons also we will make it center. And for salary we are going to make it right. For that we will make it as text end, and we will go to form now. We will reload once. So ID is showing in center, all the headers are showing in center, so date of birth centered and salary aligned to right. So now we will start working on our edit operation. I am closing this. Before continuing with this session, please watch last 2 sessions which we worked how to retrieve the data from the database and how to insert the data into database. Please watch those 2 videos before continuing with this session. Now here we are going to create one action method for get, and I will make it as iAction result. This will be edit. It will return the view. So this is our edit action method. Whenever user clicks on edit button, so we will get the ID, and here we have to check is there any employees available in the database with this ID which is provided by the user. Context dot employees dot. So this ID will be primary key, it will be single record, we will get it. If data is available, x such that x dot ID equal to ID which is provided by the user. Here we can check if employee is not equal to null, then we have to assign this employee data to our employee view model. Here we are going to use 2 different models we have discussed in previous sessions also. So one, we are going to use this employee model to communicate with the database, and another model, employee view model, we are going to communicate between controller to view and view to controller. We are going to use this employee view model. Here we have to assign this data to employee view model. Here I am creating one variable for employee view model. Here we can assign now ID employee.id, first name, so now we are assigning all the employee data to employee view model. This view will be passed to our update view, that is here. We are going to return this view after getting the data. If there is no data available with the ID which is provided by the user, then we have to return the error. For that I am going to store this error in our temp data error message. Already in previous session also we have discussed about error message. Here we are going to display as employee details ID, so which is provided by the user. Here we can use string interpolation. For that I'll call ID here. So this message we have to display in the index action view. I'll redirect to index. Also, if there is any unhandled exceptions are there, we have to display that to user. For that, select our entire edit block, right click, snippet, surround with. We have to use the try catch. I'll use same temp data to display the error message. ex.message, and here I'm going to return so it will redirect to index view and it will display the error message. In index view already we are reading success message as well as the error message. If it is not null, it will be displayed in the index. Now we will create a view for edit. Right click, add view, select the empty view, add. I'll make it as edit. Here we are going to design our edit form. For that we need employee view model, which is available in employee data dot. Employee data is our project name, and we have to select the models. Inside models we have the employee view model. Here we are going to add our title. For that we are going to use view data. I'll provide the key name as title, edit or update employee. Here I'm going to provide an h3 tag to display this title inside our edit form. After that I'm going to add one horizontal row. Then I'm going to add form here. So method will be post and action should be edit. We are going to create another action method for post the data for edit. For that I'm adding action name as edit. Here we will design our form. Here I'm going to add one div class. I'm going to add margin bottom 3. Here I will add one label class form label. This will be ID. I'm going to display ID also, but the text box will be in the disable mode. I'm going to add text box here, which is text type class form control and ASP4. We can read the employee view model data here, that is ID, and this will be read only. So this is a primary key. We should not allow user to edit the ID. Then I'm going to create another div for our first name, class margin bottom 3. Here I will add label class form label. It will be first name. Input type will be text class form control ASP for first name. Here we are going to display first name in the text box. Here we are going to add span to display all the validation errors. That is first name, and class I'm going to add text danger, close it. So I'm going to duplicate these for last name, then date of birth, then email and salary. So we will replace this last name, then date of birth, also this type will be date, because we are going to add one calendar to this text box so that user can select the date of birth from the calendar. Then email, here text we can make it as, instead of text email, this will be salary, and this will be text salary, and here also salary. So also in previously which we created in the create form, also instead of email we used as text, we will correct that also. Here this will be type email so that it will validate the email. So while editing also we are going to add dollar before this text box of salary. For that I'm going to create one more div. I'll add class input group, and here I'm going to add span class input group of text, and here we will add dollar, and this text box we will move inside the top div. Finally we will add another div to display the button. I'll add class as grid, and here I'm going to add button, type will be submit, and the class I'm making as btn success, and I'll give the text as update. So whenever user clicks on this update button, it should post the data to controller, and controller will push the data to database. For that, here we have to create another action with the post, http post, and here I'll make it as public action result edit, and here we will receive the data as employee view model. I'll make it as model return view. So whenever we are getting any data from the model, we have to validate whether model state is valid or not. Is valid, then only we have to allow to save the data. So if it is valid, we have to read the employee data, and we have to convert into the employee model from employee view model. We'll create as employee model here, because this employee class is the responsible to communicate with the database. This employee view model will be responsible to pass the data from the controller to view and view to controller. Here I am going to add id, that is model dot id, then first name, So we have assigned the employee view data to employee class. Now we can save the data by using context dot employees dot update. Here we have to update the data. I am assigning the employee to this. Finally we have to save the changes. I'm calling save changes method. Finally, after updating the changes, we have to provide one message to user. Here I am adding that employee details updated. So this message will be displayed to the user and it will be redirect to action, that is index. So if model is not valid, we have to display the error message. So error message we will copy from here. Model data is invalid. So this message will be displayed to the user and this message will be displayed in the index view. Also we have to select enter this code block and we will keep it inside the try catch block. If there is any unhandled exceptions are there, it will be handled perfectly. So for that we can use the same thing. Any error we have to display in the view itself. Suppose if this model is not valid, instead of redirecting to action method, here we are going to redirect to view itself. That will be redirect to edit view. Here also I am going to redirect to edit view when there is a error. We'll save the changes, we'll run the application. We'll edit this employee which is added last. So this ID will be disabled. User can't edit this ID. This ID field is not mandatory to display here. If you want, you can make it as hidden and you can read the ID. And we will update this test update. I'll change it to something different. Select one date. So we'll check whether these validations are working or not. I'm clicking on update. It's coming to our post action method. Here we are checking employee state. Employee state is not valid. It's coming to else condition and it is returning to edit view again. Here we have to add the bootstrap alert to display the message. I'll copy this error message from create. I'm going to add in the edit. Also we will copy this alert message from here and we are going to use it in our edit. In previous sessions we have explained about this. So we'll run the application now. I'm going to edit this. Here I'll remove email. Currently these validations are working from server side. We are going to apply client side validations also to this edit form. Click on update. So model data is invalid. This message box is shown. This alert will be closed after 5 seconds. That is already we are setting in the custom JavaScript. This was explained in the last session. So now we will add one email and we will update it. So employee details updated successfully. Here we have to apply the client side validation. Also whenever user is editing, if I am going to address bar and I can edit this employee ID anything like this, and I will try to enter. So this validations also we applied, employee details not available with the ID 789. So these validations also we applied. Now we are going to apply client side validation. Currently it is working only server side validations. You can check that. Here we can check currently what type of validation is working. Whenever we are clicking on update, it's hitting to our server, so that means server side validation only working. So whenever we are using server side validations, response will be slow. That's why we will apply the client side validation to our form, so that it will not hit the server. Without hitting server, it will validate our form before submitting the data. For that, we'll stop the application, go to the edit view. Here we are going to add one partial view in the sections, scripts, here we have to pause that partial view which is available in the shared folder. This is the partial view which is responsible for the all the validations. These two scripts will be called in the edit form, so that time these validations will be working from the client side. So just copy this partial view name and paste it here. Now we'll check in the debug mode, run the application. Now I am not entering first name, email, salary pot. Click on update, so it is not hitting our controller. So without hitting controller, so it's validating from the client side. So even if you are adding any data here, automatically that message will be moved. Again, if you are removing the any text, so client side validation will be called and it will not allow you to submit the form. So here I will pause the correct data now. Update, so it's coming to controller, model state is valid, true. We are going to update the data. So employee details updated successfully. So like this we can implement the edit operation in ASP.NET Core by using Entity Framework Core. Also one more thing here we have to notice is, so whatever the data we have entered previously, it is showing in the form, so we have to disable the. For that, go to the edit view. So in the form, autocomplete should be off. So we'll reload the form now. If you check it here, so all the autocomplete data has been removed now. So user has to enter the data. Update. I'm removing debug point. Continue. Employee details updated success. We can open our database and we can check whether data is updated or not. For that, execute our select query, test data. So everything is updated perfectly. First we have to create delete form. For that I am going to create one action method for delete. We are going to reuse this edit action method. It will be similar to edit. I'll copy this, and here we are going to use this action method. Here we will change it to delete. This is delete action method which is expecting ID parameter, and based on ID we are going to filter the data from the employees table. So we will get the data If employee variable is not null, then we are going to assign this employee data to employee view model. This employee class is responsible to communicate with the DB context, and employee view model is responsible to pass the data from controller to view and view to controller. Here we are going to assign employee data to our view, that is delete view. If this ID is not available in the employees table, then we have to show one message to user stating that employee details are not available with the ID which is provided by the user. If there is any unhandled exceptions are there, we are going to catch with this try catch block, and this is also we are going to display in the index action method. Right click on the delete action method, add view. We are going to select empty view, add. I will name it as delete. So we are going to take our design from edit form. It will be similar to the edit. Here I will change the title as delete employee, and here we are going to display title in the form. This error message we are going to pass from employee controller. If this error message is not null and there is no white space, then we are going to display error message to user. And also this is going to be delete action method, so we have to create one more action method with the delete for post action. And here we are going to disable all the text boxes. Here we no need to edit the form, so I am making as disable. So that it will not allow user to edit the data. Also we no need to display any validation messages here, so I am removing all the validation spans. And this is going to be danger, and I will change the title as delete. Here I am going to remove this client side validation is not required because we are not going to edit or insert any data from this form, just we are going to delete. Also we can take confirmation from the user to delete. For that I will create one on click JavaScript function to take the confirmation from the user. Whenever user clicks on the delete button, this JavaScript function will be called. Also here we can pass employee name, model dot full name. So now we have to create another action method to post the data. For that, go to the controller. Here I will create one post action method to delete the data. I will create one public action result method is delete, and here we are going to get employee view model. Model. Finally we have to return the view. Here we have to check whether is there any data available with the ID which is passed in the model. For that I will check context.employees. Here we have to verify is there any data available or not. So anyway we are going to pass primary key here, so we will get only single record. That's why I am using single or default. It's model.id. employee is not equal to null, then we have to delete the data. Dot remove. Here we have to pass employee record. Also we have to save the changes here. Finally we have to pass success message to the index action method. So this message will be displayed to the user, and we have to return to redirect to action method. Say index action method, we are going to redirect. If there is no employee available with the ID which is passed by the user, then we have to make it as error. So we are going to display this message. So finally we have to verify is there any unhandled exceptions are there. For that I am going to keep it inside try catch block. Here we have to pass message to again delete view. Here it will be here we will get model data from the delete view. So from there we are verifying whether is there any record available with the ID which is passed by the user. So if the data is available, then we have to remove that entry and we have to save the changes. So we have to display this success message to user for confirmation, and finally we are going to redirect to index action method. If employee is not available with this ID which is provided by the user, then we have to show the error message like employee details not available with the ID which is passed by user, that is model.id. So finally we are going to redirect to the index view. If there is any unhandled exceptions are there, we have to show that error message to the user, and we are going to redirect into our delete view. Instead of index, here we are going to redirect to delete view. We'll run the application and we'll see the output. So currently we have 22 records. We can see the same in database also. We have 22 rows, and we will try to delete one entry. Click on delete button. So it is showing our delete form where all the controls are disabled here. You can click on delete. So employee deleted successfully. Our JavaScript function is not called. We'll check that. First we'll verify whether that 22 ID is deleted or not. Execute the select query so that record has been deleted from the database. We'll check the JavaScript function. Here we have to make it as confirm. We'll reload it, reload the data, and we'll delete again, delete. So now it is showing, are you sure to delete employee? It's the first name and last name. It's showing as full name here, and if I cancel, it will not delete this entry. Again I will try to delete the data. ID is 21. This time I am confirming to delete. Okay, so employee deleted successfully. After 5 seconds automatically this alert will be closed. We'll check the DB. So currently we have data 21. Execute query so that 21 record has been deleted from the database. We will delete one more entry, delete issue to delete employee, test employee. Okay, it's deleted successfully. So like this we implemented this bootstrap alert in previous sessions. If you have not seen my previous sessions, please go through with the sessions which we explained about how to read the data from the database and how to insert and update the data. So like this we can perform CRUD operations in ASP.NET Core MVC by using Entity Framework Core. So that's it for today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.